forward from there. So here we discussed about the children as having various aspects to their life. It could be naughtiness, or it could be, the mood of respect or whatever, but we need to understand each child has different emotions which we should be giving full respect to and value it. Sometimes when a child is behaving naughty also, it's not that always we get angry. We need to respect that why that child is behaving like that. There's so many times these things happen. When Yashoda is just showing, when Krishna is showing his mouth, the mother, saying, why did he eat dust? But that mood of, that anger is there, but at the same time, do we give full value to that particular exchange? How do we deal with the child is important. Similarly, when there is a love given to the child or whatever, that focus is, I am there with the child in whatever emotions he or she displays. That is important. Then we try to understand what is the expectations that we are trying to learn. Some things came out like how do we deal with girl children, how do we deal with different age group of children, and some of these things which some of the parents expressed, which we will know in course of time. And actually we also discussed what does parenting mean to us. So generally our mindset in this slide, what we basically saw is, when we say parenting, the first thing comes is, how do I take care of the child, how do I do whatever. But it is also, the thing that should hit us is, it is not simply about the child, it is also about me. That's why this last time, is it about us? That means the child and me, not simply about the child and how I expect the child to behave, how I want to do this with the child, what that child should do to me, or rather meet my expectation of behaving well, to studying well, showing respect. That's all fine, but in that relationship, the other component is me. So it's about us. So don't look at it as top down. I will say this is what it is. That is not what it is. We need to see the two sides to the same coin and then relate to that particular, whatever it is. It could be a situation, or it could be the direction for the child, whatever it is. It is also also to do with us. That means my role and the child's role. This is very important. Generally, we tend to ignore, particularly in India. How many times when you see, when we are talking, there is child is trying to say something, and we just shut him off, or we ignore him, like there's a guest, and we are talking, the child says something in between. Hey, sunne ro. Do we do that? But so the whole thing is, we are thinking that child is just an instrument or something like that, right? But the whole thing has to be that it is also about me, how I deal with that child in that situation, so that there is a mutual respect, a mutual relationship which is developing. And it also talks about the psychology of the child. That particular pushing away the child, making him feel small, you just lay off. This is the psychology. Now, the child, when he grows up, when he or she grows up, one thing is, the child may think, I need to dominate, otherwise people will put me down. Or the child may, depending on the guna of the child again, one child may become aggressive. See, when I tried to say something, someone tried to crush me down. You could have two reactions. One is fight. One is surrender. You understand? Now you are playing with that psycho of the child there. When you do something very consistently, the child either becomes a rebel, or he becomes too insecure and weak and lack of confidence. This is not just in one instance. You say, okay, why you are blowing things out of proportion. One can think like that. One day I just told my son, you shut up. Then you are making a big mole out of a mountain. Or a mountain out of a mole. It's a small thing. But just imagine you keep doing this on and on and on, and that a child is such a fertile brain and very, very developing brain, and it gets some signal either to say, I need to fight back, I am being suppressed. Or in another side it may feel, no, I think I am useless. I am useless. That is why my parent keep telling me like this, not talk in front of others, don't say anything. See, these small things, how they have an implication on it. So every action with our child, we have to be mindful of that interaction, not that taken for granted. A child, many times when people come here, when we greet the parents, do you greet the child? Many times, think about our own things. Once 4 people come, husband, wife come to a child, you just say, mostly you are very, very obliging to the parents, and child, maybe you may give a smile, or you may just say one pat, something very basic. Mostly we ignore. Sometimes we do something about it. But these days people are mindful. But then these are things which we should be mindful. Whenever a child walks in, not just as parents, as neighbors, as friends, I can help, like you bring your child and I talk to that child, he or she will feel nice. Because supposing they see me as the hero. Like I am sitting, they are seeing, like everybody is sitting, this guy is sitting up there. And if I say hello to the child and say, how are you doing? He feels, wow, I am big. But each one of us can do that to that child. But if he is a small child, that is playing on the psycho of the child. Please remember this. It is playing on the psycho of the child. And as parents, at least I can't expect everybody to come and greet my child, it's in their nature, but at least I should respect the child. The minute he comes from school or he comes out from there, do I give my full attention to the child? I am watching television nicely. Hey, go and eat something like that. Do I have that basic courtesy to go and say, so, welcome back, how was your day? You should be feeling tired. These things add to the child's mental well-being, very important. So it's not simply about the child, it is also about the parent. That is important to know. Then we saw, okay, what are some of the topics that we were likely to do, the different dimensions of the child, challenges of the current environment, how to influence behavior, how to deal with the child, the body, and a few more things like that. Now, dimensions of the child, first thing that we saw is, the composition of the child is that while we generally see him as a body, he is not just the body. He or she is actually the energy within the body. That is the first concept, which in India we generally recognize, but we tend to push it to the background. That's okay, but then, I look at even our own self, I don't think I am soul. I think I am body. And dealing the same way with the child also. But that has a major problem in the sense that we don't understand why a child is behaving the way he or she is behaving. This is ignorance. So, Shastras give us that knowledge that a child or anyone for that matter, and in this case we are talking about the child, so we need to understand that aspect of the child as being an energy within that body, who is not just 3-year-old, 1-year-old, 5-year-old, he is carrying the experience of so many lives. But again, it is hidden. There we discussed about the various components, right? When we say body, it is not what you see physically outside the senses. Pancha Indriya, we discussed that deeply. Beyond that, there is mind, intelligence, and false ego. And we also talked about what is that false ego, right? That which is something which you think which you are not. Or you think you are something, but actually you are something else. So we are actually having that problem that we are thinking this is a body and dealing with it. This is a 2-year-old body, 3-year-old body, 5-year-old body, 18-year-old body. But if you have to get that little understanding that this is a soul which is just come and sat inside the body and will move on, then the respect is different. Versus seeing that this is a product which I created with my husband or with my wife, and it better be aligned to the way I and my husband think, or rather more importantly, I think. It doesn't work like that. You also see that this child is having so many things in its own background which we are not aware, neither is the child aware of, beyond a point, like your past. Correct? So, but those influences are there subtly in the brain. I give a simple example. When a child is born, fresh child, right out of the womb, they wash the child and immediately put next to the mother. How does the child suckle from the mother? Did you teach? Who taught? Think about it. See, these are all practical things. See, scientists will simply put DNA. So how do you know that this fellow was already only a human to know to suckle? What if it is a chick? That means a bird. There is no suckling there. So the thing is, it is coming from some earlier experiences which has been trained also when you are a soul. But right now you are a child with no experience in that body. But we look at it as something which is completely very fresh and just that, nothing in the brain. But there are so many things in the brain. The Lord keeps revealing it slowly, one by one. First He reveals, now you have to survive, Baba. To eat, you suckle. It's very, see, the whole body of the female is there. How do you know? And the child is just closing his eyes also. How he knows all these things? So, there is something beyond just this body that you and I are thinking it is or experiencing it is, something beyond it. So this is important. The second aspect is the guna of the child. Guna is, there are certain ways of behavior which the child brings along with it. That's why I talked about that the subtle memory or the subtle behavioral aspect which has been there with all of us, it will continue. Right, like, if I am generally a quiet person, I am a quiet person here in office, in wherever. It's not like here I will be very vociferous and in office I am quiet. It is unlikely, right? I am natural. Because I carry this conditioning with me wherever I go, by and large. So this soul which is coming from somewhere else is also being conditioned to behave in a particular mood. Like sattva, that is ignorance, passion and ignorance, passion and goodness, that quality will come with the child. You should be able to observe the child and understand what is this child's guna. Whenever I see children, wherever I go, I try to think, this child is rajasic, this child is sattvic. Not to that I form an opinion about the child. But it is important for you to, sometimes you see and check and go in that direction, you find something different, then you have to adjust your understanding. If you have that knowledge, you can deal with the child much better. Why I am saying this is, if you think like this, then if I tell you like this, you will listen. If you are thinking that way, if I tell you that way, you will listen. You understand? Your nature, my idea is to impress upon you. And how can I impress upon you? Provided I know how you think. Psychology. So, observing the child to understand what guna it has is very important for the parent. Otherwise, the child is having one guna, you are giving a treatment in another guna, thinking it will behave like this if I tell like this, but the child will not listen. Because his mood is different. Now, have you all seen, there is something called a dog whisperer. How many of you would have seen that? It used to come in National Geographic. Dog whisperer. There are so many whisperers like that. They understand the psychology of the dog so very well. There are some dogs, very beautiful thing, to understand psychology. It's not about, not Bhagavad class. Right? But then, this all helps to understand how this guy is completely neutral. He has not seen the dog has not seen him at all. But he knows the psychology of how a dog behaves. There are dogs dogs are treated like children in homes. You all are aware, right? If you are having a dog, you will call, that is, you are the parent of that dog. That's how they treat. This is my child, kind of a thing. So there are so many dogs which are completely unruly. So they don't know how to deal with that dog. So they will call up this child with the dog whisperer. Then he comes. And some dogs, we see now, we stand there, it's a you are afraid to even put your step in. That guy, when he comes, he knows how to deal with that dog. And it will do, sometimes these kind of dogs, he will ask them to hold, and he will say, give me that chain in my hand. And he will keep it at a distance. And the way he deals with it, in 5 minutes, the dog will become very silent. And this is not that, okay, this dog, all dogs have a guna. Understanding of that guna, that fellow is making lakhs of dollars. This is not in India. This serial was about a guy who is in US. Any harsh dog, very powerful dog, he just goes and makes it like a tame calf. And then he will say, this is how you should treat your dog. And initially, sometimes he will hold the dog in a way that the parents will feel very uncomfortable. You just keep quiet, don't touch, don't interfere. And within 2-3 minutes, and then he will tell the psychology how you should deal with the dog, then only it will relate the way you have been doing these things. That is why this dog was behaving like this. Now, that psychology, who's inside the dog? What is inside the dog? Soul. Correct. At the end of the day, that is also a energy, living entity. Like that, now, I also have a psychology. You can handle me in a way that I will behave the way you want me to behave. Child also has that. Your smartness is an understanding that. That is why important is guna. People may think I am teaching philosophy here. No. This is science. Science is given in the philosophy. That we can't help it if we want to discard the science and say science today by someone who's got a PhD only, I will take it as science, then who's the loser? If you know the psychology, you will be able to handle that better. So that is important. Now, this portion we have not done, so I will get into it. So the proofs of that are rather, where is this philosophy coming from? I have picked this from the Bhagavad Gita 2.17. Avinashi tu tadvidhi yena sarvam idam tatam vinasham avyayam yasyasya na kaschitam kartumarhasi. That which pervades the entire body, you should know to be indestructible. No one is able to destroy that imperishable soul. These are the qualities or nature of the soul. What we so far discussed about the soul being present. Second one, najayate mriyate va kadachinnayam bhutva bhavita va nabhuyaha ajo nityam sashvatoyam purano na hanyate hanyamane sharire. For the soul, there is neither birth nor death at any time. He has not come into being, does not come into being, and will not come into being. He is unborn, eternal, ever existing, and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain. So this is the thing about that soul being permanent. He is simply changing his bodies, but he is always present. So you can't judge how old is your child. Primeval. Primeval means very, very old. Right? We say, no, from primeval times this has been there. That means it is very old. Not that it is just 1 year old, 2 year old, 18-year-old. This is important. Then, never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of you cease to be. Krishna is telling Arjuna, you have always existed and I have always existed. And all these people, all of us have existed. There was no time when you did not exist, that you are not existing. In the future also you will exist. That means after I die, future, I am still me. I am not lost anywhere. Next is, as the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a person. So that's where the child comes in. Passes from one body to another. I was a human, I was an 80-year-old, I died. I have come back fresh with new blood, soul, everything, flesh, everything, into another mother's womb. And I have taken birth now. But I have the vasanas of that 80-year-old and maybe the previous whatever I was, previous whatever. So this is the soul's position. If we understand this, even otherwise, see, dealing with the child is now like respecting another being. Not that it's to be put in the background, silenced or ignored. No. When I said, right, you don't ignore a child, this is what I was saying. Because he is not someone who is just 2-year-old, who's under your care, like, no, nobody is under nobody's care, beyond a point. That relationship is important rather than the age or the size of the other person. Correct? Because of the physical limitations of the body, the child is not able to be very nicely doing things. But because the body is limited, the soul is not limited. You get it, right? A child who cannot walk nicely because the body is having a problem. The soul can walk. But we take it that, oh, this is something less experienced, doesn't know. No. Limitation of the body, not the soul within that. Now let's see the same, this one. Vasamsi jirnani yatha vihaya navani grihnati naroparani tata sharirani vihaya jirnani samyati anyani samyati navani dehi. As a person puts on new garments, giving up old ones, the soul similarly accepts new material bodies, giving up old and useless ones. So now, having understood this portion, this is from the philosophy. Now we will try to understand something which we can, I don't know how we want to call it, some studies or things like that. It's a very interesting video. You can see this one. There is some kind of a rebirth related documentation. We will see this one. Prabhu, will the audio come now? No, I have embedded it into this one. Sound will come from here.
Otherwise, you can connect Bluetooth to this one.
Yeah. So it's not coming.
My name is Dr. Walter Sarkir.
We can connect Bluetooth.
Okay. This one?
JMDC 8.
Huh?
JMDC.
Maybe it is already there. Succeeded.
My name is Dr. Walter. My name is Dr. Walter Sarkir. I'm the president of Reincarnation Research. The pioneer in reincarnation research is Dr. Stephenson at the University.
They say no, not connected.
For 40 years, he traveled around the world.
It's connected, no?
It's happened.
Volume.
Is that people have
Okay.
My name is Dr. Walter Sarkir. I'm the president of Reincarnation Research. The pioneer in reincarnation research is Dr. Stephenson at the University of Virginia. For 40 years, he traveled around the world studying young children with spontaneous memories of past lives. From these cases, we could derive principles of reincarnation. One of the patterns is that people have the same personalities and talents and look exactly like they did in their past incarnations. Barbara was born 9 years after Anne Frank died. When Barbara was a little child and said, "My name is Anna Frank," she had spontaneous memories of her past life as Anne Frank. At the time, her parents didn't even know who Anne Frank was.
So you're all following the accent, everything is okay, right? You're clear. It goes off.
Was because the diary of Anne Frank was not yet published, and they thought she was making this all up. What makes her case compelling is not that she has the same facial features as Anne Frank, but she had memories from childhood, and by the time she was 10, her parents took her to Amsterdam, and the father wanted to go see the Anne Frank Museum. Barbara said, "We don't need a cab, it's right near here." And they said, "How can you possibly know? You've never been here." Somehow Barbara went straight to the Anne Frank house, looked at a wall, and said, "Mommy, look, the pictures of movie stars are still on the wall." And her mother looked at the wall and said, "Barbara, there's nothing there." And the tour guide said, actually, the pictures that Anne Frank had clipped out of magazines of movie stars had been on that wall. That was the first time her parents realized her past life memories were real, or that her reported memories were not fantasies. And Barbara became a childhood writing prodigy, just like Anne Frank had her first book published at age 12.
Okay, so this is the one documented case. That means there were two children. One was born, and then she talks about some things to her parents which they are not able to relate to. They take the child to some other city, and there when she goes, she sees a museum and says, she just goes in and then says, there is some pictures of some like stars, film stars or something like that, she says, and there's nothing there in that thing. Then the mother says, "See, you are just imagining these kind of things." Then when they go and ask the museum director or whatever, yes, this wall had all these things earlier. So how does this child relate it to those? And then they have actually taken the picture of, like here, these two pictures where that other child when she was whatever, in that previous one and this one. So effectively what has happened, that consciousness is actually whatever, then the trace to that girl dying at some point in time after that this girl was born. But it is the same soul which has come from there, because, and it is carried the memory of the old. And proof is like this, right? You show me proof. And this guy is saying he is not a Krishna conscious person or something, right? He is basically a scientist who is researching into some concept called reincarnation. And he is trying to find proof. Okay, if you say so, I want to see. So they go, like, there are so many things, right, which comes out. They go there, they physically talk to those persons, understand the thing, document it like that. That's the way researchers are done. And he is able to track these two lives. What was that previously? And naturally, that child was also a prodigy, and this child also continued that vasana, that, and exhibited the same, what you call the mental strength or greatness of that person. So this is proof. People today ask proof, show me proof. You are saying this is all Bhagavad Gita, we don't know who wrote. People even say Bhagavad Gita is written by some ordinary person and things like that. People can argue whatever. But to give you confidence in the matter, if you have to go into today's research, you can find such things are there already. Now let's look at one more. So the first thing is on the the soul, which we saw, the philosophy, and also whatever researches are going on today. I mean, you can Google and check up. There are so many such documented evidences are there. Amazing evidences are there. I have known of one story which happened in India where like a boy is always recalling something to do with some other city. He's talking about this, my family, my wife and stuff like that. Parents are thinking, this guy, why guy's gone crazy? Like this is mad child. What is he talking about? Wife, father, child and things like that. Right? You know, you can't relate when someone is talking such things, right? This is all. So, but then the parents are stuck with such a child, right? What do? You want to solve it. Okay, come on, let's go to wherever place you are saying. So they take that child to that place. And then he goes into one home and says, this is my child, this is my house. And he goes around and he's talking to all these people. They're saying, calling the person by name. Like, you know, and they're surprised. How does he know? Hey, I am your father. They're laughing. What you are talking about my father? Then to prove that there is something, they said in that house there is one particular lock only with that guy who passed away new, that is still not opened or something like that. Now let's see, you open this, something like that. And the child like that opened it because he remembers that password. And then they could understand, yes, this is the man who died and then came into this other family. Of course, not that everybody, all of us can carry such memories, but we want proof, right? There are always one or two instances, 1.3 billion people we have, only in India, right? There is always some proofs left somewhere. In that 1.3, there may be 10-15 people who carry the. Krishna says elsewhere in Bhagavad Gita, I give you memory and I give you forgetfulness. So for these souls, he has given that memory. And actually, I don't know whether we heard it here or somewhere or we will hear it in the future in another video. They are saying, actually we carry those memories, but when we are put in school, till such time there are these memories. And then we recondition them with whatever data we are putting in their head, that memory is lost and they are getting this memory. This is also scientific research. So they have actually interviewed many children like this. Over a period of time, they forget those things. What comes into their head is 2 into 2 is equal to 4 or whatever your computer games and stuff. Because you are conditioning them. When they are young, that is fresh till that old thing. Then you overload them with so many other memories, it is gone. But Krishna is saying, I don't want you to carry all the memory of every past thing, so I am giving you forgetfulness in your interest. I mean, just imagine if I have to remember like that child about my past bank account, my earlier wife, children. Very, very sad state. Like, I can't live in peace in my mind. That's a very, very difficult situation. Therefore, Krishna is very merciful. He says he removes that memory from our head. But there are a few freak instances like this which actually prove that point that yes, this is transmigrating from one body to another, that energy. And when it comes into another body, don't think it is just a new manufactured item, freshly created ROM or RAM or whatever it is. There are so many things stored inside that which we don't know. So similarly, the gunas, what does the Bhagavad Gita say? Material nature consists of 3 modes: goodness, passion and ignorance. When the eternal living entity comes in contact with nature, O mighty armed Arjuna, he becomes conditioned by these 3 modes. This is Krishna's thing. So when you come in contact with material mode, you will get one of these 3 modes. Sattva, Rajas and Tamo. And that again is related to your past. This is what the Lord is saying. Here is one more video which gives research into this behavioral pattern. It's connected now.
Okay, let me start with you for a simple definition of epigenetics. Well, when people ask me about epigenetics, I just tell them, look at the mirror. What do you see? Well, what you see, if you look at it, you see skin, you see eyes, you see hair. If Superman was in the organs, you also see liver and lungs and bones and all of that. And we have more than 200 different tissues in our bodies. They're very different, they don't look alike, they're very stable. And here's the mystery. We have 200 tissues, one DNA sequence. So Dr. Watson, when he discovered the structure of DNA, couldn't explain that. How did we go from one DNA sequence to 200 different tissues at the same time, in the same person? So in the 1950s, Conrad Wellington, a biologist, was studying this question and postulated there must be something that works on top of the DNA sequence. And this is where the term epigenetics comes from. Epigenetics. And at the time, he didn't know what it was. But he said there must be something that modulates the genes in different tissues. We now know what it is.
Francis, a little bit more on the word epigenetics. What does epi mean?
Epi and top of about genetics, obviously the noun for DNA. So these are all factors that come around the DNA and ultimately affect how likely it will be that the DNA is right or not.
Possibilities of trauma or famine affecting what happens in people's physical life 3, maybe even 4 or 6 generations later. Children with PTSD and various horrible things that have happened in the past bearing these marks. Enormous implications for law, for society, is it not?
Yeah, enormous implications. One of the most interesting implications is that about 10 years ago, the human genome was sequenced. Some scientists were saying, well, that's it. We're going to understand every disease, we're going to understand every behavior. And it turns out we did, because the sequence of the DNA isn't enough to explain behavior, it isn't enough to explain diseases. And that's where I think the field of epigenetics took off, because even hardcore geneticists started saying, wait a minute, why are these people with the same DNA behaving differently or having different diseases? And they started paying attention to us.
On that point, people with the same DNA, we all have heard of identical twins, the same DNA at the beginning, and as they grew to be older and older women, differences appeared. What is this teaching us, Francis?
Well, when the first discovery came to light that, we have these identical genomes, but they start diverging in terms of their character, in terms of what they're doing in the individual, there was evidence that there was an epigenetic divergence. So when you're young and you're twins, you have very similar epigenomes. When you're older and you're twins, you have very divergent epigenetic features. And so the implications was that as you walk through life, as you have your unique experiences through that lifespan, your epigenetic changes are mirroring those experiences.
So to be specific here, what you all have learned is that genes can turn on and off and that they need instructions. They don't just sit there and do what they do. They need different instructions and may get different instructions to do different things at different times in a person's life.
Exactly. Having DNA is great, we need it, but we need to also know when genes need to be turned on and turned off. So the light switch, the timing is incredibly important to development and functioning.
So here, twins, they have a different behavior. Why? Because, you can say the DNA is all the same parents, same everything. Why is there a difference? So there is something which is much beyond, and that's the latest study that they are doing. That is, you don't stop with a DNA, there is some more new branch of science which they are analyzing, and it is able to give you that each one develops a certain type of behavior, which is what we call the gunas, and they are saying, right, we gather these experiences and that sticks to us. And the earlier one is, I continue into another body. So now the natural logical way is, I sort of carry that, whatever experiences. He says, right, two of them have different sets of experiences. They may develop that top over the DNA, there is something which is actually making them behave differently, whatever. But connecting that to the earlier one, that this is continuous, so there is nothing like death. It carries that behavioral pattern into the next body. So, this is just to put a sample, right? You can go and check this kind of now, today everything is in our fingertips. Like you want to talk about scientific proof of soul, you will find it. Like this, why different people behave differently, I want scientific proof. You go, there are so many studies available. I've just put one sample to show that what we are speaking is not simply some theoretical knowledge. This is the subject matter of study, scientific studies as well, and not to be like clouded in your brain to say, oh, this is Krishna fellows will say. These are people who are not Hare Krishnas. They are technically scientists and behavior, whatever, that field of experts in that field. And they are now coming to these conclusions what we have already, Krishna has said 5,000 years back. You are discovering it today, but Krishna has already said it. That's why we say Shastras, you don't have to experiment it to prove that. It is already settled matter. Prabhupada uses the word. Settled matter means that is absolute. Now, if you want proof, you now find it out, but that's already proved. That is what Shastras mean. Shastras means, Veda means perfect knowledge. The meaning of Veda. Veda means knowledge. And these Shastras are the perfect knowledge. It will not be improvised later. Scientific proofs, today you find out some theorem, something, till someone else betters that, that is considered as scientific to that point, right? Which means it is not perfect. Till someone proves you wrong, which means there is more truth beyond that. Up to finding that truth, we take this as the truth. When someone actually establishes something more, then that yardstick moved, the truth, the goalpost moved from point X to point Y. Then that is whatever earlier is not truth, no, that is relative truth. Relative truth means, yes, it is true, but it is not ultimate truth. Because someone is able to find something more than that. And someone else is, but it is evolving. Science, so it's evolving means you are discovering newer areas, which is good to that point, but it is still not to reach the ultimate point. But Shastras means it will never change. I cannot get a one more PhD beyond what Krishna has already given. That is the lead. I can't now go and say, Krishna, you said this, but my theory is this and it is now better, like more evolved than your theory. Krishna says this. I spoke the same science to Vivaswan, and he spoke to Ikshvaku, Manu, Ikshvaku, like this. And that science was lost in course of time, therefore I am teaching it to you again now. Which means, he says, I am teaching the same science, not an improvised science, because today is in a different world. Vivaswan is like many millions of years back. So time has changed, sir. We are in AI times. So the truth is different. No. Truth is always one, same. It doesn't keep evolving or it doesn't, you understand? Our lifestyle may be different, but that truth is one. So Krishna says, I taught the same science what he is telling Arjuna, the same thing I taught. I am not changing anything now. So if we are able to take that same science from the scriptures, many people say when we teach Bhagavad Gita, they say, oh, that is all supposedly spoken 5,000 years back. Now it is very different. No. Then why did he say, I spoke this to Vivaswan? That is even 5 million years back. Then that should have evolved. But truth doesn't evolve. So the point is, when you take Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam or Chaitanya Charitamrita or the Vedas, they are perfected knowledge. At any time it is applicable, the same matter is applicable. Whether in Satya Yuga or Dwapara Yuga, Treta Yuga, or even after 10,000 years, that does not change. You may possibly have proved some of it now. By that time, another 10,000 years, you may have proved more of what is there in the scriptures. So if you directly accept it, you are benefited. Like the child says, right, in some theorem, it is able to say, this is the thing. And when the child says, you accept that is true, because where did you learn? You learned from this school. Did the child prove it? You say water. What is the formula for water? Chemical formula. H2O. Now the child says water means H2O. Now is it wrong or right? Right. But does the child know to prove it? He did not, because I mean, if he wishes, he can do, that's a different story. My limited point is, the child, what he's speaking is actually truth. And if he takes that knowledge and starts acting on that, there is nothing wrong. You understand, no? Or so many simple things, if I put something inside, I add another chemical into this, it will burst. Okay. Now, if the child says the same thing without having tried that, is it good or bad? Why to experiment and allow it to blow in your face? That is knowledge, already established knowledge. If you mix these two chemicals, it will blow up. And the child understands, I will not mix these two because it will blow up. Arey, you have not tried, how do you know? If you have to tell that, go try it. It will happen. So this knowledge is there. If you want, you can prove it. In course of time, people are trying to do this. These researchers are all only talking about that, right? They are now trying to prove what we have already been saying for thousands of years in India. So these are things which we should give value, and as parents, this will help you. Now let's look at the next one. I mean, these are, I will just flip through these fast because you all know this, but we have to. Why it is? Okay, I have not been on the full screen. Sorry. Can someone read it in the interest of monotony? Would you be able to read that? Big house, small family. We see these things, right? These all have a today's reality. Today's reality. Advanced medicine, poor health. Today's reality, low peace of mind. Today's reality, touched moon, neighbors unknown. Less common sense. So this it's like that Kaun Banega Crorepati. Some basic question is asked, I will go for the audience. Something like that. Which is a browser. So few things are put like Google, like that, and something else is put. They don't know which to answer. This one. Information. The lesson of less information. Knowledge and wisdom, the lesson of less. So you have a lot of information, but what is the use of so much of information? So much of information. From that information, if you are able to bring in some knowledge, it's of use. Like for example, think today, if you have to collect the phone calls of all the people in this JP Nagar, how much data you will have? So much information is there, so much like these waves going on all around, that's all information. Now within that, knowledge is something, if you are able to put that information in some kind of a structure, there is some knowledge. Deriving something out of it. Like now today, for example, when we had this terrorist attack, right, it happened. Now there's so much of information available. They are tracking all the cell towers, so much data, right? That place itself had, I don't know how many, they are saying some 2,000, 5,000 people were there. And how many people were using phones, whatever, we don't even know. This is all information. But if they have to put that in some kind of a structure, there is some knowledge which they will get about who did what we did. Having known that, next is what do you do with that knowledge? With the wisdom. So how will India react to that situation? That depends on wisdom. Everybody can say, okay, we have a tracking devices, we will track everything finally. The ultimate decision, what are you going to do next with that knowledge? You know so-and-so did, and why they did, what is the background, everything is fine. But all this knowledge, how you are going to take the right decisions, that is wisdom. So today, there is so much of knowledge, information because of everybody is in media, right? Every child is always on the phone. And you don't know what they are actually processing as knowledge in their head. Do you know? Every child is very keen to understand, particularly these teenage mothers. They are worried what are they seeing behind. Whenever I go, they show, when I go and look like this, there is only some nice thing which is there. Alt tab. Right? You put alt tab, by fraction of a second the screen changes. Then they are playing games behind, they look like, it's easy to cheat, right? They also know how to erase the memory, what all you will go and check, what is the history you are verifying, they know how to delete with all those things. Right? What you are browsing, no, I will go and clean up my browser so that they won't see anything behind. So even better equipped, I have limited knowledge. Right?
They also, because they know all this, they will also
yeah, and you look at the social media, they are into every small thing, right? What is that? The Instagrams, Facebooks, and people through those mediums get hooked to some criminals. I mean, I have seen things like, you take naked photograph of your parents and send it to me, and that child has done it trusting that guy on the other side, but not trusting the parent here. I mean, these things should be, it could be 1.5, 2 days session effectively, but due to lack of time and I'm just going through this. But understand these things, these are real for our children. We cannot take it for granted. And you are living in this environment. You are trying to protect your child in this environment. Last one is costly watches, no time. That also for the parents, for their children. Right? I am so busy, I am employed, my husband is employed, my wife is employed. Right? So, and I am so busy with so many meetings, it means social commitments, I have so much for myself, I am so busy, I don't have time. Either whatever time I don't spend, or I entrust them to other people to influence their mind. Right from kindergarten, you put it into some whatever, and they influence your child's mind. You are not influencing, they are influencing. And then there's one worker who's supposed to take care of the child because I am so busy, I am so tired, whatever. And that person influences the child's brain. That means how vulnerable your child is. Do we realize that? Without me knowing, in the background, the child's mind software is being written by someone else. You are supposed to write the child. You are thinking, I should write the software of my child's brain. Someone is writing behind you. You don't even know. And all these social media is writing in their head. And we are blissful and we think, oh, how come my child is like this, because he's already been influenced by so many things which you are not even aware of. So how can we be on top of that? Which means our engagement with the child, understanding it, not taking it for granted, going down, discussing with the child, creating that trust. Trust factor is very important. No? A child goes and talks so many things to his friend. Why not to the mother and father? Have you ever thought about it? These teen parents always keep complaining. Oh, they don't tell me anything, but their friends tell me so many things. Why? Huh? At that age, like to her point, at that age, you stop being a mother. You should go down to their level. I cannot hold my thing. I am a big officer in this company. How I can talk that language which a child talks. Forget your officer, your judge position, whatever. You become like a 16-year-old in the way they think and talk to them in that way to understand so that they are open and come and tell you first, not to someone else. This is how children are exploited. They have some insecurity, they go and discuss with someone they talk nicely to the child on the chat. Oh, you are this, then I am always there for you. This. The child, like 8-10-year-old girl, thinks that person on the other side is so nice than my parents, and that person abuses that child later. And the child does not even have the ability to talk back or say anything like this. And this abuse going on for many years, the child doesn't even reveal that. Because he thinks this person is more good to me. When he is troubling, you don't see this. Because they are playing into the psycho of the child. But as parents, first that confidence should be there in me from the child's point of view, not in some third person. That means how do I relate to the child on a day-to-day basis, not with my ego of thinking, I am your father, I am your commander. No. At that age, you are not the commander.
Let's say in the current generation, my parents are probably they have not liked Facebook or Apple, which was when I am new. So even though they wanted to plan at that time, the age factor or the learning ability of the parent will decrease. It happened with the parents. Now it will happen with me also, because at the time when my child grows up, I might not be giving time for learning them to be very understanding them properly, or spending time with them.
Correct. So see, you are talking about the technological advances, which is actually a limitation for us. That we are not technologically as advanced, not as advanced as that child. So there's a gap. But it's not just about that. It's even below that. If the child is able to relate to me so very well, he will not ignore me. And for that, I can always put him on to my friend or whoever with whom I think can relate at that level of intellectually. But he is in safe hands than in someone behind the screen who don't even know who he is, right? See, that is not at all a problem. Like I have a problem, then I will say, hey, Sunil is a good friend of mine. He has that knowledge. Why don't Sunil, my son? And he will talk to you because he knows, he is confident about me, and he will talk to you. And I am safe because I know Sunil is a good guy who can handle my child properly. Rather than, I say, I don't know nothing, this is a way you do whatever, and that child goes into some black hole and something happens, who's responsible? So the child first should trust you. Maybe I don't have that knowledge, that's okay. But do I have the mood to connect them to the right person? That we can figure it out. But the thing is, how much are we trusted by the child to open up? Children, they have this fears. If I tell my mother, gone. That's it. That fear will be there. But they will go and tell their friend. No. Why? Because they are not having that fear with that friend that they are going to chastise them or judge them. Right? With friends, they generally don't judge much. Right? They'll say, "Acha, you're very nice." But a parent will never say like that. But, so how you are able to relate to that child according to their age, that is your smartness. So what I can only tell you is you have to go to that level. Now within that could be a separate workshop, right? You understand. The idea is, we can cover so much. He's already telling me 6:30. So these challenges are there. But I am giving you the bullet points. Now you expand further from that. Okay, he said these 5 things we carried forward. Just like I summarized today as we started. These 6 things we discussed last week, 1 hour. Now you say, okay, these 6 points. Now how do I elaborate on these things? Right? Read up some articles, do something. Then you enhance your ability to deal with the child better. And of course, if there are more people interested, we can go 5 sessions more also and take 1 point and go deeper and like that. But here second week only 3 people have turned up of the mothers. I mean, of course, 2 more, 5. Last week we had 15, 10, 15 we had. Now we have 5 parents. You were also there last week, sir. You were there last week? So 6 of us are there, not bad. Long weekend, whatever. So if you are interested, I can do. I mean, not that I may have it in my head, but I can prepare. I can do research on your behalf and give it to you in one shot. Like in 1 hour you watch all these things. I would have put in 10 hours, 15 hours of my time to prepare that. But you all have to decide. If you really want it, then you do it. I'm ready to spend time for you. But anyway, you got it right. At a higher level, these things matters. Not simply fearing, oh, like this, like this, like this. That is reality of today's world, sir. When I myself is hooked up so much to these Facebooks and Instagram, how can I not expect my child to be like that? That we will see next in another section of our thing. We will see that. I only find fault, but I myself in that same web. Right? So what is time? Huh? Okay, so there are two more angles. See, this is just the environment, what it is. Because of this, the impact, there are two more slides like this, again another 10 minutes or so, and then we will see the next, like the parenting styles and things like that, few more interesting videos, which explains what the style is desirable, what style is not desirable, how you can influence, those kind of things. One more session, and depending on the strength, I will try to wind up then, or we can take it forward. Okay. But do you find this reasonably okay up to now? Whoever is here, as parents, do you find okay? I mean, I may not have told you something which you don't know, but my session's intent is to make you go a little deeper into what you already know. You understand? When I put it up, you say, yes, I know. But when I start probing you, why you ask that, why did you say this, then you start thinking, right? That is what is my session about. Because I am not here a teacher or something like that, that you don't know. I am only making you go deeper into what you already know. And if you do that, I am successful with my session. Because I am enabling you, I am making you think with every action with your child, then my objective is achieved. You will not go on behaving like the way we have been. Oh, no, this I need to be careful about this. If you start thinking in that direction, you are already succeeding. And that is my purpose. And I give you some concepts to make you understand that. Okay, so is it okay so far? Thank you very much. I will stop here. Hare Krishna.